Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined in by other prospect experts here at the Hockey Writers. I got Peter Baracchini and Dayton Reimer. Guys, we're pretty close to training camps, rookie camps, hockey getting started. We got CHL, we got lots of stuff. The junior hockey is actually just around the corner. They usually start a lot sooner than the NHL, so we're gonna have a lot to talk about in the next few weeks. So, Peter, how's it going?
Yeah, doing great. I mean, just like you said, now this is when the prospect tournaments are starting. That's when camps are starting as well. And yeah, it just seems like hockey is in full swing right now. So really excited. I know we talked about it briefly last week, how we were excited then, but the anticipation is just building up right now. I really can't wait to see more like just regular game action right now.
For sure. And Dayton, how's it going?
Yeah, it's good. I don't know. It's pretty much everything that Peter said. I also echo.
Yeah, yeah, we're getting closer and closer by the day. So, and what that means is we went through our top 100 prospects last episode, and usually there's a string of articles that come out around that time. We got the top 100 prospects, don't include the goalies though, and that is a separate article. Top 10 goaltenders update that I usually update. The last 3 seasons, I believe, that I've updated this list. And I did my preseason one and added one big name I will talk about. And some of the rankings changed a bit from what the goalies did in the last bit of the season. But let's just jump right into this. I'll start with you, Peter, and pick a couple goalies from this list. Either you agree with or you just want to highlight or disagree. I guess you could also disagree with where I put them. Who do you got from the list here?
Yeah, looking through the list earlier in the day, I'm not necessarily, I'm kind of a bit surprised to see Jacob Fowler at 5. I thought it probably would have been maybe slightly higher up, maybe top 3, considering what he was able to accomplish this season as, one of the top rookies or one of the top goaltenders in the NCAA. I mean, you look at all the accolades that he has, even the World Juniors, he's got a gold medal to his name. Um, it's really fascinating to see how quickly he has risen and how well he has developed so quickly from, the USHL level up to Boston College. And 32-6-1 or last season, 926 save percentage, 214. Looking at the rest of the list, nothing against Dustin Wolf or Devin Levi, but I think maybe he may have pushed himself a little bit higher up above them in terms of development, growth, and just the numbers itself. I know Devin Levi is probably pushing on that NHL level, so he won't be on the list for long. Same with Dustin Wolf, but I really think that Jacob Fowler should have been a little bit higher up there. And obviously, when you go to number 2 and number 1, you're looking at the top 2 goalie prospects this season in Yaroslav Askarov and Jesper Wallstedt. It's going to come down to those two as possible. If there is going to be a Calder candidate, it's going to be one of those 2 goalies. That way, if the goalie can't push their way through, it's going to be one of them. And I think, Wallstedt may have the advantage because the Wild seem a little bit more competitive this time around, and the San Jose Sharks are still in that bottom of the basement / starting to rebuild right now kind of thing. But who knows? Maybe Askarov would have the better season, and he could probably get that nod as one of the top goalies or a Calder finalist over Wallstedt. But it's going to be a really, really great competition. I know we talked about it last week that the goalie race for this year is going to be very impressive because we got 2 bona fide starters that are going to go at each other in terms of wanting that title as top rookie goaltender.
One thing about Fowler, he's on this list, is the one big thing he wasn't on in the last one. I thought the way I kind of evaluated is that who's closer to the NHL at this point. I mean, you could look at it as potential as well. I'm looking at where they are in the fact of graduating from this list, how much I think they're going to become NHL goaltenders. Although Jacob Fowler has the higher potential in the ceiling. I think once, Wolf's going to graduate this year, like you said. Levi is only I think a couple games away from graduating this list. So I mean, he'll be off of it in the midseason portion because he's going to be the backup in Buffalo this season. Looking at, Wallstedt and Askarov, they both have some veterans ahead of them at this point. In San Jose, Askarov's got Blackwood, and Vanacek ahead of him, but they're both UFAs after this season. So he could potentially be the full blown starter next year. Unless they're going to go through a 3 goalie system this season, that's going to be interesting to watch. Wallsted's in the similar situation. You got Fleury and Gustafsson ahead of him, and he's going to be rotated through those guys. So it's pretty much the same situations both of them are facing. And I guess who rises to the occasion maybe forces a trade. Who knows? All right, Dayton, what about you on this list? Anyone else you want to expand on? Have any thoughts on this top 10?
Yeah, no, I think it's a pretty solid top 10. I was looking through the other top goalies who could potentially have, slipped in there, but I don't think they could really push for that. Thinking kind of like guys like Carter George, Evan Gardner. And I've immediately forgotten his name. I don't know. Why does that happen? Anyways, yeah, some of the most recently drafted goalies. I don't think Ilya Nabokov. There we go.
Yeah.
Blanked on him. I was just literally reading about him. Yeah, I don't think they're quite at the same level. They could establish themselves further, but no, your top 10 or your 10th place guy, Drew Commesso, he's a very solid prospect. He's doing quite well in Chicago's system. Michael Harabel, we've talked about him before. A very, very talented, very good goalie who's got some excellent upside. I think I would probably flip Wallstedt and Askarov. I would put Wallstedt first. I think he has slightly higher upside. That's no slight against Askarov, a fantastic goalie. He dominated the AHL last season. He's going to be the starter if he isn't already in San Jose. But I just see Wallstedt as almost a generational goaltender. I think I don't want to put like too heavy of a hand on it. I think he could become Carey Price light. He was fantastic heading into his draft season. And I don't know if the Iowa Wild have quite as strong a system as the Milwaukee Admirals, which is where Askarov was. I think maybe you flip them and you probably see better results from Wallstedt. I might not be in the majority there, but that's okay. I think both are great options. And it's like, oh, do you want, you want to win or do you want to win?
Yeah.
That's probably the only change I would make. It's a very good list. Just exciting to think about the goalies coming in this year and in the next couple of seasons. It's a really good crop.
And there's a few, like you mentioned, a couple guys that could be on that list next season, or the next update in the midseason that could, be there. And Fowler's going to be up, higher. Yeah, it is a very good list. When you look at Askarov and Wallstedt, like I bumped Wallstedt up to 2. I can't remember where he was before. I know he was lower. I had Levi higher, but I think Wallstedt's got more, and Wolf as well. They're both above him now. And, Wolf, I think his NHL season kind of tempered a bit. I mean, I know he had some bad defense in front of him and all that. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how he goes this season with the Flames, because their defense is probably not much better than they were when he was with them at the end of the season or at times during the season. So I don't know. I'm a little worried about his confidence maybe if he gets lit up on a team that is not going to be very good this season. So at least it's not anticipated to be. So it's going to be interesting to see how he kind of adjusts mentally being on a team like that, because we all know goalies with their confidence and what it can do. Wallstedt, he had that bad game when he had his NHL debut and then went down to the minors and had a stretch of like 2-3 weeks of games where he allowed 3 or more goals. And then he came back up and had a shutout. So, I mean, it's confidence is an interesting thing with goaltenders and how they kind of deal with it. So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see a lot of these guys this season for sure. All right, another list that gets updated towards the beginning of the season is our farm systems rankings. And we, of course, have gone through those throughout the offseason, going through the different teams. But there's been an update, and some things changed, some things didn't. And we're just going to kind of look at the list in general here and talk about what kind of changes that happened. Dayton, I'll start with you. Who did you see? What team did you see get the highest rise on this list from the last time we talked about it?
Yeah, there was a few that jumped up. But I think the one that caught my eye the most was Calgary Flames. They definitely had a strong prospect pool heading into this. They were ranked 17th. So, room to grow. And they knocked it out of the park with the 2024 draft. They added Zane Parekh, which is a great player to add, especially with the team that they're building. And then they add Andrew Basha in the second round. They have already Matt Coronado, Samuel Honzek, Hunter Bertstevitz. It's all of a sudden, like you add a few of those guys in there and you have a fantastic prospect pool. And I could see them climbing up over the next couple of seasons, especially when you're not quite sure where this team is headed. I've read some things that might imply that they're heading towards another rebuild if things don't go well this season. And then if that happens, I wouldn't expect them to be in the basement for long. They have a good group of players that will bump them up quite quickly. So yeah, I like seeing them up at 13th now instead of 17th.
Yeah, I mean, this draft really bumped their prospect pool up, but they had some really good picks, and we've talked about that, their draft class. And the same thing, like you said, with some of the prospects they added and some of the trades that they did. It's some really good work, and they needed it because their prospect pool wasn't that good before. They need a boost there, especially if they're going into a rebuild, because rebuild will take a long time if they don't start getting some prospects in there, right?
I'll add too that they grabbed Luke Misa in
Yeah.
round 5.
Mm-hmm.
That's a win. Like, well done. Everyone was scared because he's small, but he is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he should have been a second.
they had a great draft to class,
Yeah.
and I think that was the biggest reason why they were bumped up so much. Peter, what about you? Who'd you see kind of make a big jump in this list from the last one?
Yeah, definitely the Calgary Flames. I know Dayton went well into depth about their drafts and the substance that they have in their organization right now. I think that was a really, really good pick, but also the Philadelphia Flyers rising from 20 to 16. And obviously, with the arrival of Matvei Michkov, obviously he's the star top prospect in that system right now. Basically, faces the franchise, if you will. But you also look at what they've done in the previous draft before, adding Denver Barkey, Oliver Bonk. They already have Emil Andre in the system. They also added Jet Lachenko from this year's draft, along with Spencer Gill, who I was very high on. They took him in the second round. So they got depth throughout the whole entire lineup, especially on the back end. They seem really, really set there, and even adding some depth on the wing too. You know, they already have Zane Wisdom in the system, Noah Powell as a late round pick with his size, with his power forward like game and the IQ that he possesses. They seem to have like great balance up front. I think they could use a little bit more, substance in terms of like high end talent aside from Matvei Michkov, because you got like a good amount of depth and role players up front. Defense looks pretty much set, but I do like the direction that they're going to. Um, Obviously, little bit of a tangent here, but Ivan Fedotov coming here. I know he's not a prospect. I know he's 27 years old, but they got a deep pool already of prospects or players within the system coming over right now. But in terms of like their younger prospects that are still playing at the junior level, they got great quality in their system, and I'm really looking forward to see how a lot of them take that next step. Barkey took a big one last year. Same with Oliver Bonk. Jetlachenko, you guys know how much I was a big fan of his in his draft year last year, and I expect a big season from him. And with Michkov making the jump to the NHL, see how well he adjusts, because we all know how great his shot is. Obviously, he's been, moving up and down between KHL, MHL, really didn't get the ice on there. He has that opportunity now. So I'm really looking to see how well their group continues to go forward and how they make the jump over to the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at teams that, well, I mean, Philly was pretty close to the playoffs in this past season. So, I mean, but they have built up some pretty good prospects over the last few seasons, where Matvey Michkov, of course, being the biggest one. Luchenko, yeah, I think they got a really good guy there too. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you call them, I guess they're still rebuilding, even though they had a really good, surprising season. It's going to be interesting to see how they do this year. But, yeah, I think they have a pretty good prospect pool in general, and they probably deserve the boost there. All right, other side of it is the teams that kind of fell off a bit. I mean, I'm looking through it, and there wasn't any teams that really dropped off, but there were some that dropped. Peter, who did you see take the biggest fall in their farm system here?
Um, Kind of surprised to see Washington take a bit of a tumble down from 18 to 21, considering how well Ryan Leonard played. Um, at the collegiate level, Cole Hudson being one of those dynamic offensive defensemen, Andrew Crystal taking a big step, Miroshnichenko just taking that next step to the NHL. So they still got a lot of decent prospects where maybe they probably still would have been inside the 20 range. Really don't see them falling that back too much, even though it's only like maybe 3 spots. I think I still would have kept them within that same range. Um, the other one falling down, and not to be, a homer here, but the Toronto Maple Leafs at 27, moving down to 23. Um, Really feel that they are still in that top 25 range. I feel like they have a better prospect system and more depth than the Edmonton Oilers and even the Vegas Golden Knights at this point. So I probably still would have had them at that spot again. Probably would have dipped down to maybe wouldn't be in that 20 to 23 range, but still would have been in the top 25 as a result of that. Again, a lot of their players are, you still don't know exactly what they have, but there is a lot of potential that they can make the jump and be impact players at the next level. So, the fact that they're outside of the 25 mark, kind of a bit surprised that they took a bit of a fall. I didn't expect a big one, but again, 4 spots really isn't that bad, but I just still probably would have had him a little bit higher than the teams that are ahead of them right now.
Yeah, I can probably see that. One that of course, being home for the Canucks, they dropped off a bit, a few spots. But I think biggest thing was because they lost Brstevich in that trade. They lost Yanni Yurmo in the trade as well. So there's two pretty good prospects out of the system that could drop them a bit. You got guys that have kind of graduated or close to graduation. So maybe that's also part of the factoring in. But I still think the Canucks have a pretty good system. It's just maybe not that deep. I think they've got couple good blue chip guys and maybe some interesting mid range, but they're going to have to start boosting that a bit, because now that they're in a contention window, it seems they're not going to be getting really high draft picks. They're going to have to start mining some late round things, or their prospect pool is going to keep dropping off once Karamaki graduates in and Villander. Then all of a sudden you're pretty thin again, which is what happened when Pedersen and Hughes graduated from the pool, and then all of a sudden you're really grasping at quality prospects. All right, Dayton. Now, what about you? Did you see anyone kind of fall off for you?
Yeah, there was a few that dropped near the bottom. And the New Jersey Devils, they dropped 5 spots from 19 to 24. They did add Anton Salayev, which I think was a pretty solid pick. They have, very high-end defensemen in Luke Hughes, Simon Nemec, but they don't have like that really, top-end defensive guy. And I think Salayev, sorry, will provide that for them. Beyond him, they don't have a lot. And so I can see why you'd lose a little bit of space. Seamus Casey is great. He's developing very well. Arseny Gritsyuk is another top of their pool, and I don't know about his potential too much. Lenny Haminhio or Haminaho. There we go. Haminaho. There's a lot of vowels in that name. Um, you know, Again, probably a mid-tier guy, Mikhail Yegorov, maybe another mid-tier guy. It's not a lot of depth, but the Devils don't need a ton of depth. They have all of their top guys in the NHL, and they are not rebuilding anymore. This is the, competitive team that the Hockey News apparently picked to be in the Stanley Cup final this year. I don't know if I see that. That feels very optimistic, but they will be in the playoffs, and I bet you they make at least one round. They have a very talented team, and they're not going to be pushovers anymore. I was also a little bit surprised, just really quickly here, to see Utah drop a couple of spots after drafting TJ Ginla. I think TJ Ginla is a potential first line goal scorer. And now they didn't change any of their other prospects. They're still really, really good. Their 2024 draft, of course, went very physical and big. And maybe they just thought they'll never get a goalie, so why not get a bunch of defensive defensemen? That might, I don't know. They went very heavy into that side of the prospect pool.
Yeah.
Other than TJ Ginla, everyone else was on the defensive side of things. So maybe that's why it drops a little bit. I still think it's a very talented prospect pool and definitely deserves top 10. I would move them up a little bit.
It could be that because Dylan Guenther and Logan Cooley are now NHLers, that could have been the thing. I mean, those are two blue chip guys that are now not part of the prospect pool. So I mean, maybe that's why it kind of dropped off a bit. But overall, I think they're still a pretty talented group. It's just, again, they're going to be starting to have guys going to move up, and then who knows what the other guys are going to do, right? So we'll find out. Okay, let's talk about some underrated prospect pools. Just there's so many of them in this group, and pretty much the top 10 stayed relatively the same. The San Jose Sharks took over top spot, obviously, with all their talented guys that they've added. Although they may drop off again because Macklin Celebrini will graduate by the time this next one is out. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of move. Maybe really short-lived at the top. But I mean, we'll see. They're probably going to get another really good pick this year. Peter, who's your most underrated prospect pool in the NHL right now?
It's hard not to pick the St. Louis Blues because of what has not transpired as of late, but how they continue to add the depth and quality of talent every single year. And it leads off with Jimmy Snuggerud. I mean, there was that 50-point campaign. We're in 40 games in 22-23. Slight dip last season. Probably Minnesota wasn't as competitive. They weren't probably as strong, but Snuggerud was still top 3 in scoring with 34 points, 21 goals in 39 games. So he was still an offensive catalyst there for University of Minnesota. But you look at what follows after that: Adam Jiricek, Dalibor Dvorsky, Otto Stenberg, Theo Lindstein. Got a mix of everything in there. You got another highly skilled player in Dvorsky. You got the two-way play of Otto Stenberg, and you got an offensive two-way defender in Adam Jiricek, but also a very steady defensive-minded player in Theo Lindstein as well. That kind of rounds everything out. So I really like their prospect pool and what they've done as of late. They all scream St. Louis Blues type players where they all have that hardworking mentality. And I just think that's one to highlight there because I think it's a very underrated system. They didn't really drop that far from 13 to 14. They're still middle of the pack, but it's one to still keep an eye on.
100%. I think the Blues are a very underrated prospect pool when you're looking at the guys that they've added. And I mean, this year they did a few. Well, getting Dylan Holloway, he's not prospect. He's pretty close though. He hasn't played a lot of games. And then adding Philip Broberg too, who's pretty, again, one of those guys too. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it all kind of develops because they do have some underrated guys too. We haven't gone through their prospect pool as a deep dive yet, but yeah, they're very interesting. Dayton, what about you? What prospect pool is the most underrated for you?
I think I'm going to be a little controversial here because it's fun.
We like fun.
Yeah.
I think one of the most underrated prospect pools is the Ottawa Senators. They are ranked 31st in this group, And I don't think that's fair. I have been on record multiple times saying Carter Yakubchuk is not my favorite prospect. He has high end potential and I think a lot of risk associated with it. That does not change the fact that he could be, and I would maybe bet will be, it's just going to take some time, a top pairing offensive defenseman. He is a fantastic player and he will make things happen around him. You just have to clean up the rest of his game. That's at least worth, I think, a top 30 consideration to have somebody like that in your prospect pool. They've also made a lot of really smart, low key additions. Adding Xavier Bourgault, I think, was a really good add. They also picked up Jamieson Reese, who has potential. And of course, both those guys are a little bit older, but they just need opportunity. And the Senators are the perfect place to give them opportunity. Jan Yannick, another guy who had some really good showings early on, had some NHL looks, just didn't quite click in Arizona. Further down in their depth chart, you got Jorian Donovan and Zach Ostapchuk, middle tier guys who have like some pretty good work ethic and can contribute to an NHL roster. Angus Crookshank is really intriguing. Maxence Gwinnett is another guy, a big right-handed defenseman who has an offensive flair. It's a lot of guys who have, like, nobody's talking about a lot of the prospects in the Senators system. And to be fair, not a lot of them will be first line players, maybe not even second line players. But there's a lot of really good all around skill that is slowly being revealed throughout, some of their low end picks. Stephen Halliday is one of the latest to show up as maybe somebody to keep an eye on for the next couple of seasons. Who's drafted as an overager, I think a 5th round pick. He's just continued to keep scoring and making his line better as he's progressed through hockey. So yeah, it's a really, I think, well-rounded pool, and it's definitely not, a top 20 pool, but it is not bottom of the league, I don't think. And that, I think, makes them one of the most underrated groups.
Definition of one we're not thinking of as being a high-end one that could potentially make some noise and be surprising. Who knows? Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, there are a few like those additions like could potentially be really good pickups, and maybe no one's really talking about them right now. Bourgault was a high-end prospect when he was drafted, right? Maybe fell in through the cracks in Edmonton a bit, but now he has new lease on life in Ottawa and who potentially have a better opportunity, like you said. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see for sure. All right, to finish the show, just because rookie camps are starting pretty soon here, Dayton, give us one prospect, one or two, I guess, quickly that everyone should be watching for the Senators throughout rookie camps here.
We're the Senators. Let's go with Tyler Kleven. He is a guy who has the size and, the physicality to make the NHL. Whether he'll be ready to make the NHL, I think, is another question. And rookie camp will definitely kind of split between, is he going to make the roster or not? And if not, could Kalen Addison take over and replace, kind of change up the looks in that? I would say that it's either between Kleven or Addison. I don't know if anyone else is quite at that level, but yeah, no, keep an eye on Kleven. He could make some noise, and if he makes the NHL this year, yeah, he could be a force to be reckoned with.
It's a good one for sure. Peter, I know we did our Maple Leafs preview, but this is just focusing on rookie camps. Who are you watching? It could be one of those guys, I guess. But who should everyone be watching throughout camp here?
Yeah, definitely keeping an eye on the mainstays or the big names, Cow and Minton. I've talked about Nikita Grebyankin so much. I'm not going to do that, but I am going to mention a few other names. I'm going to mention Cade Weber, mainly because the Maple Leafs have lacked that kind of physical shutdown two-way defender for some time, and he's got the size 6'6", 194. He was that acquisition that they got from the Carolina Hurricanes. Again, probably going to be a depth defender. I don't know if he's going to make the jump, but he definitely has the size and ability to possibly, earn a call up. Maybe not this season, but it's definitely one to keep an eye on to see how well he could progress as a prospect. And the other one I want to highlight is Jacob Quillen. Has been a big, big impactful player for Quinnipiac University. He scored game-winning goal in that championship game against Matthew Knies, who's going to be very familiar with him. He's going to be at the rookie camp as well. So I want to see the steps that he takes because of that high energy and pace of play that he plays with. 6 feet, 196 pounds, quick and agile skater, great hands. I think he's going to be one of those bottom six type players that's going to be very energetic that could be injected into the lineup. So, couple of their additions that they had either free agency or trade in 2023-24, I would like to see with the Marlies, see what they can do, but also maybe if they earn a call up, it may be a great experience for them at some point because they are the type of players that the Maple Leafs need right now.
For sure. Yeah, rookie camps are interesting because I mean these guys are probably not going to make the lineup, but they will bring, that excitement and, impress the coaching staff for future call-ups and stuff like that too. So definitely. For me, it's Jonathan Lekkerimäki all day. I'll be watching him because he's the guy that showed a lot of potential in his AHL time. And then, of course, the World Juniors, he was a standout and then came over and he scored his first AHL goal, looked pretty comfortable. And I mean, outside chance, maybe he makes the lineup to start the season. I don't think that's happening because there's so many guys he's gonna have to beat out. But I'll be watching him in the Young Stars tournament that starts this weekend. He's just one of the most exciting prospects the Canucks have right now, and I'll be really watching him to see what he can do and the tournament and then in training camp to follow in preseason because haven't seen him in preseason yet. So that's going to be fun. All right. Well, thanks, Peter Dayton, for coming on and talking prospects again here as we count down the days until our regular season starts and we start talking about the CHL and previewing all those games and stuff coming up. And then, of course, the draft again, 2025 draft throughout. So, but make sure to check out everything at thehockeyriders.com. We got everything going on there. But until our next episode, we'll see you next time on Prospect Corner.